Let's talk about the New York Knicks because as of today, they don't look as good as I anticipated. Now, I do believe that a lot of teams across basketball deserve some grace for a slow start. We have to remember when they traded for Karl Anthony Towns, we were, a week away from training camp? So to try to incorporate him to this offense and his defense with that little amount of time makes sense that things haven't been nearly as perfect as some people expected. They also traded a lot for Mikal Bridges. And though they still do have some pillars like a Brunson or a Hart or OG Anunoby, this team is just different. So I'm not one of those people that's going to say that because they started off 4-5 that they can't right the ship or this is the end all be all, but I do want to talk about some of the things that I've seen that maybe contributed to them being 4-5. First thing has to do with that identity, man. Last year we understood it. Jalen Brunson, we want you to have that ball more than Giannis. We want you to have that ball more than Luka Doncic. Take us home on the offensive side of the ball. The rest of us will try to hit the shots you're giving to us. We'll offensive rebound like crazy. We're going to be a defensive-oriented team that makes you tired by working you out defensively because we're going to get second chance possessions, hell, third chance possessions, hell, fourth chance possessions, and that's going to really tire you out. Now, you don't trade for Karl Anthony Towns thinking that you're going to keep that offensive identity, right? Because you're not adding one of the greatest offensive bigs in the league / in the history of basketball thinking that he was going to be in the dunker spot or thinking that he's going to be a heavy role man like Mitch Robb or Isaiah Hartenstein. You had to change what your offensive identity is. And listen, they're the third best offense in basketball right now. They're number 3, only behind the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So obviously some things are working, but there is still one thing offensively that I'm still struggling to compute as a viewer of the Knicks. Because some games, they letting it fly like they're the 2023-2024 Boston Celtics. 45 three-pointers generated. Open, contested, don't matter. 45 three-pointers. And then other games like last night, it's like, oh, we only go get up 20? 20? Wait, what really is our identity? I think a lot of that, most people be like, you got to get more threes up, shoot more threes. But the problem is generating threes. And as of today, the Knicks just have a little bit tougher of a job generating good open threes compared to some of the other contenders across basketball. Because they don't have a ton of penetration. It's really just Jalen Brunson. Mikal Bridges has been used pretty decently this season, where sometimes you see him as a role man and he get it at the elbow at the top of the key and he's creating for others, like making a quick touch pass. And I feel like some of that stuff is pretty cool. But as of today, like almost all of the 3-pointers that Mikal Bridges have had has been in the corner. He hasn't, I don't know if he's hit a single one above the break. At least that's what it feels like. So they're having a generation problem where against some teams, again, you can get up 45, and then other teams like the Pacers last night, it really is only getting up 20. And hell, the Pacers not only got up more than 20, they made more than 20. And it's hard to stay in those games. And they were in this game, don't get me wrong, because the rest of the offense is pretty damn good. They were in this game, but they're losing on that aspect of it. Another thing is this. What stands out here? What stands out to you as somebody that watches the NBA? Is it the fact that we're in November 10th is when this game happened, and Tibbs has shortened his rotation to practically 6? Like, don't get me wrong, I completely understand that Precious, Mitch Robb, and Cameron Payne are out with injuries right now. But that doesn't excuse this, Tom Thibodeau, because the team you were going against, the Pacers, were missing Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, Obi Toppin, James Wiseman, or Isaiah Jackson. So let's just say they're missing 4.5 real rotational pieces. And somehow they still managed to run, I'm going to say an 8-man rotation, because Enrique Freeman playing 8 minutes or Johnny Furphy playing 4 minutes don't really move me too much. But like, I'm thinking about people that have played more than 10 minutes in a game. You're down to 6. That is a problem. Quentin Jackson, was not a guy I was familiar with until this season started. When they saw Aaron Nesmith go out with an injury or so on and so forth. And Rick Carlisle said, hey, we can't have our star players playing 50 minutes, 48 minutes a game. So we're going to have to give some chances to some of these dudes. And Quentin Jackson is playing. He's playing. Regardless of whether or not he's been good or bad for the team, he is performing. He is on the court to make it easier for Tyrese to not play 40, or for Ben to not play 30, or for Pascal to not have to play 40 minutes a night. The Knicks doing this early in the season is just a scary sight. And I noticed this a week ago when they played against the Rockets. Like, look at this. 42 minutes, 40 minutes, we're around to 40 minutes. And this was a 7-man rotation. And I was ringing the alarm then, like, yo, what's going on? He's already shortened it by 1 extra player. That is scary stuff when you consider we are 9 games into the NBA season. And every team across hoops is dealing with some injuries, which is it's sad, it's scary, but that's the reality of the league right now. Everybody is dealing with something. You have to be able to trust some of the other dudes on your bench, even if it is for the 5 minutes, the 10 minutes, or so on and so forth. I thought that Huck Porty looked pretty good in that one game I saw him. Was that against the Pacers? The first game versus the Pacers? And then he got a real contract. I thought he would get an opportunity to play a little bit more just to alleviate some of the pressure off of Jericho Sims and Karl Anthony Towns. But that's not the Tom Thibodeau way, I guess. And I don't know how he can go through the things that he went through last season, where everybody was also injured, and seeing people play so many minutes and be like, that is the recipe that we need to win these games. Because it was all for nothing. You know what I'm saying? OG Anunoby played 40-something minutes and you still lost. You still lost. Anyway, I don't know what you have to do to get into the good graces of Tom Thibodeau. But I mean, I guess only a certain people in the world know what you got to do. But a game like last night felt like a game where they ran out of gas. But also the biggest pillar, the biggest thing that is a struggle for the Knicks is the defensive side of the ball. And again, you don't trade for Karl Anthony Towns and say you're running center for us and think that your offense was going to be great, right? It's more like we're going to be a super high-powered offense and the defense is going to be okay. It's going to be average. As of today, that has not been the case. And I'm still working on this, but I think part of the problem is that it's hard to have a good offense when you have multiple people that you're trying to hide. And teams are not going to allow you to hide Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. Now, as a center, it's just almost impossible to be hitting on the floor. And I'm watching these opposing teams put both of these guys in the action and saying, let them get a stop. And so far, they've just really been struggling to do that. I'm going to kick it back to that last game that I mentioned against the Rockets. There are a few possessions that stood out. First of all, I do want to say Şengün was taking these boys to town the whole game. So shout out to Alperen Şengün. This is where it starts for me, at least, to talk to y'all. Just him by himself on an island. Şengün gets the hook. Boom. Another bucket on Cat. You thought that was it? This is like the next possession down. You kind of get an understanding of what I'm looking at, right? And then Tom Thibodeau said, hey, OG, go get that man. Go get him. Go get on Alperen Şengün. We're going to hide Karl Anthony Towns. Have Karl Anthony Towns be this roamer and help. He's going to be guarding Tari Eason in the corner. Tari Eason, shout out to him. He's having a great season so far. One of the homies. He's not the guy. He's a guy that you're willing to, as a coach, to let shoot, right? So OG Anunoby does a pretty good job guarding fives, but he is still undersized compared to Alperen Şengün. And look at this. OG gives up baseline because he believes that Karl Anthony Towns is going to be there, right? He isn't. And on this play, you see OG Anunoby do like this at Karl Anthony Towns, like, where is my help? That's what your job is. Your job in this play is to help me. You're supposed to be 2-9ing and finding your way over. Now, the problem is he got caught in the middle of his 2-9. You see, he gets out of the paint because if he does, it's going to be 3 seconds, even though they don't really be calling that shit anyway. And then he's just too late, and he's so late that he decides not to contest at all because I don't want to foul him. And Şengün gets a lay. And that has been the Karl Anthony Towns defensive thing so far. And on this season, it's been bad. I don't even want to show the numbers because I mess with Cat heavy. But it's been real bad. So far this season, when he is on the court, opposing teams shoot 15% better at the rim. 15% better at the rim is a ridiculous number. Overall, the team's defense is 14 points worse per 100 possessions with Karl Anthony Towns on the floor. Now, again, he's such an offensive juggernaut, but like right now, these numbers aren't averaging itself out. So as of today, based on the team's offense and the team's defense when he's on the court, he's kind of a negative. And that's not the way I look at basketball, but I'm just showing you the stuff. And the offense with him, again, after a slow start where he was trying to figure out what am I supposed to do, 8 shots here, something like that. He had the 44-point game against the Miami Heat, and he's been able to provide offensive fire the way they anticipated, you know? But the backside is where the problem is. And I don't know exactly what the solution is, because if we're talking about a 29-year-old center who his previous team had to go get the Defensive Player of the Year to play alongside him, I just don't know if we're ever going to get to the point where Karl Anthony Towns is going to be a positive on the defensive side of the ball if he is your last level of defense. Now, we did see him be at least a positive last year when he was playing alongside another big, whether it be a Nas or whether it be a Rudy Gobert, because he's not taxed with being the last line of defense. Maybe it is just like wait it out until Mitchell Robinson comes back and then they run lineups with both of them together. Then boom, the defense is just as good as we want it to be. But I'm not completely sure. And it's not exclusively a Karl Anthony Towns thing. Like, there are other people on the team, like a Jalen Brunson, who I feel like I've seen get beat backdoor so many times or just lose his man. There's also like they're running a ton of drop coverage because that's what you have to do with Karl Anthony Towns is your center. And when you're trusting in drop coverage, the guy that is in the pick and roll with you, the guy that's guarding the ball handler, whether it be OG or McHale or Deuce McBride, those dudes' jobs are so difficult because they have to fight so hard to get around, over, or under those screens. And this was not something that I personally noticed until I read about it. Shout out to the Knicks Film Room Substack. I recommend it if you're a Knicks fan. Even if you're not a Knicks fan, you want to keep up with the Knicks. They wrote about how Mikal Bridges is not navigating screens defensively as good as a lot of people anticipated. And it's not something that I picked up on watching live, but after I read the article, then I went back to watch the game. I understand what they're saying. So it's just making the game more difficult for everyone if the guy that is in drop coverage is obviously not very great. And Mikal Bridges, who is supposed to be one of our defensive stoppers, has been okay, but he's struggling with navigating those screens. Our defense is just gonna collapse because everybody has to be in rotation, and one misstep is enough for a team like the Pacers to take advantage of. I will say that OG Anunoby has been what feels like a flawless defensive player so far this season. I can't explain it other than that. So again, I'm not saying that the Knicks cannot get their stuff together and turn the season around, but I think it's going to be an uphill battle, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. You let me know what you think about the Knicks.